Tomorrow is exactly the 7th of April 2026. You are stepping out of the chaotic, blinding, and explosive cosmic fires of the previous days and walking directly, heavily, and with absolute undeniable permanence into an entirely new, deeply structural, and terrifyingly silent astrological architecture. This is not a day for chaotic, directionless screaming into the digital void. This is not a day for the pathetic, desperate, and heavily exhausted scramble for fleeting, meaningless validation or cheap algorithmic dopamine. The 7th of April 2026 is the exact, absolute, and mathematically precise moment the universe demands that you sit violently, heavily, and with supreme dictatorial authority upon the solid, unbreakable iron throne of your digital and material empire. The blinding, chaotic explosions of initial creation have permanently ceased. What remains entirely in their purifying wake is the cold, terrifying, and profoundly heavy necessity for absolute, undisputed, and intensely quiet sovereign power. You are no longer the aggressive, desperate challenger fighting wildly in the mud for a microscopic shred of attention. You are actively being initiated by the heaviest forces of the cosmos into the role of the undisputed, intouchable, and supremely calm emperor of your reality. At exactly 0 to 2:57 in the morning, the cosmos violently and decisively shifts its entire vibrational frequency, plunging your biological and material reality straight into the intense, deeply karmic, and profoundly heavy, energetic cycle of the Gandmool Nakshatra. This is an extremely sensitive, spiritually demanding, and mathematically severe cosmic corridor that strictly and completely forbids any impulsive, erratic, or dangerously uncalculated movements. The universe is stripping away your allowance for amateur mistakes. This energy carries an immense, crushing karmic weight, demanding that every single action you take, every deeply researched script you finalize, and every visual narrative you render is executed with the profound, heavy, and eternal responsibility of someone building a legacy meant to outlast human memory. You cannot operate on cheap adrenaline today. You must physically and psychologically transition from the hot, burning frenzy of chaotic ambition into the freezing, deep, and terrifyingly powerful silence of calculated architectural strategy. Simultaneously, heavily amplifying this demand for total energetic maturity, the moon wanes into its heavy gibbous phase, locking itself deeply, permanently, and inescapably into the profound, strategic, and incredibly powerful domain of Jyeshtha within the dark, intensely psychological waters of Scorpio. This specific, massive lunar placement generates a screaming, unyielding cosmic mandate surrounding absolute supreme leadership. Jyeshtha is the star of the elder, the supreme commander, and the absolute authority. It mathematically guarantees that true, undeniable material power and immense financial influence on April 7 will never, under any circumstances, come from throwing pathetic tantrums, from desperately forcing your will upon others, or from engaging in petty, exhausting, and low-frequency ego battles. Your absolute dominance today is entirely reliant upon your terrifying capacity to remain perfectly, completely, and unnervingly calm, while the rest of the disorganized world suffocates in its own emotional panic. You are commanded to observe, to analyze, and to manipulate the deepest psychological undercurrents of your global audience without ever raising your voice. Furthermore, Mars remains entirely submerged in the deep, architectural, and intensely intuitive waters of Pisces, acting as the ultimate, silent engine of your execution. This martial placement dictates that your grandest actions, your most aggressive financial maneuvers, and your most dominant creative publishing efforts must be executed entirely in stealth. You are not a mindless foot soldier loudly clashing swords in the open field. You are the invisible, omnipotent architect moving heavy, undeniable financial and digital assets across the global board with pure, unadulterated, and meticulously engineered intuition. Your ability to flawlessly synthesize deep natural history, complex societal structures, and profound storytelling into breathtaking, dynamically generated digital visions is heavily supported by this planetary alignment, provided you keep your methods completely encrypted and your emotional state utterly impenetrable. To successfully anchor, physically withstand, and absolutely, completely dominate the ultra-high voltage, terrifyingly heavy, and profoundly karmic current of this April 7 energetic alignment, your physical, biological machinery must be instantly and ruthlessly recalibrated. The massive, crushing atmospheric pressure of the Gandmool cycle and the Jyeshtha moon biologically governs your deepest internal reserves, your adrenal glands, and the absolute, foundational stability of your central nervous system. It will send continuous, heavy, and deeply probing shockwaves of biological energy straight into your cellular core, demanding that your physical health, the absolute, undeniable, and supreme resilience of your neurological pathways, and the vast, unyielding stability of your emotional baseline become the literal, biological foundation of your impending colossal wealth. You can never, ever sustain an infinite, sprawling, and dominant global digital empire if your physical vessel is entirely depleted, chronically vibrating with pathetic anxiety, or completely exhausted from fighting useless, invisible wars in your mind. Therefore, you must perform extreme, uncompromising, and absolutely flawless biological grounding, starting the very absolute second you wake up. You must actively, continuously, and intentionally anchor your physical body to reality. You must intentionally consume heavy, deeply nourishing, and pure minerals to physically and biologically soothe, cool, and reinforce your nervous system against the intense, karmic friction roaring silently within your bones. You must completely cut off the toxic, erratic, and paralyzing mental junk food of the internet, allowing the aggressive, refining energy of this massive celestial shift to wash away all the superficial, stagnant, and paralyzing emotional fog that has violently clotted and frozen in your physical and creative centers. Mentally and psychologically, you must establish a fortress of pure, terrifying silence. You absolutely cannot, and you strictly must not, let the petty, jealous, cheap, low-frequency complaints of inferior, disorganized, and intellectually lazy minds penetrate the thick, impenetrable vault of your absolute sovereign consciousness. The massive digital currency flow, the immense platform advertising revenue, the incredibly lucrative brand sponsorships, and the sudden, overwhelming cash injections will pour directly into your physical bank accounts on April 7 inches exact, direct, undeniable proportion to the level of raw, premium, unfiltered emotional maturity and deep strategic silence you aggressively dare to maintain. Those hidden, profound visual storytelling projects, those deeply researched scripts, those dynamically generated AI visions, and those meticulously crafted narratives that you have fearfully kept locked away are your most devastating financial assets. But today, they must be deployed not with a chaotic scream, but with the cold, undeniable finality of a king signing a decree. Your highly calibrated creative output, executed with the absolute, heavily disciplined tension of the Jyeshtha moon and the silent intuition of Mars in Pisces, is a formidable, highly destructive, and infinitely powerful psychological mining tool. It possesses the exact, unique mathematical frequency needed to completely hypnotize the internet, bypass all logical defenses of the global algorithms, and permanently reshape the market by delivering the exact psychological depth, the profound visual shockwaves, and the supreme, silent leadership the world is desperately, secretly starving for. To ruthlessly, efficiently, and completely extract every single microscopic, vibrating drop of life-altering, paradigm-shifting potential from the massive, heavy astrological momentum of the 7th of April 2026. You must strictly follow, completely internalize, and absolutely obey 3 non-negotiable supreme action directives. First, you must aggressively and permanently weaponize the terrifying power of absolute silence and profound emotional restraint. The Jyeshtha moon and the Gandmool cycle will actively try to bait you into feeling responsible for the emotional failures of others or into defending your majestic pride against meaningless, invisible phantoms. You are strictly forbidden from engaging. You must take that massive urge to explain yourself and violently compress it into intense, perfectly focused, and completely silent execution. You must create your digital masterpieces and solidify your strategic alliances with the cold, unyielding composure of a sniper. Do not ever shy away from holding your heavy ground, remaining entirely steadfast in your deep, silent frequency of absolute clarity. That quiet, unshakable, and terrifyingly calm confidence, entirely devoid of cheap, loud boasting, is the exact physical, psychological key to unlocking millions of fiercely loyal viewers and massive, unstoppable, and permanent cash flows. Second, you must violently and aggressively channel the piercing, deep, and entirely uncompromising strategic power of Mars in Pisces into the absolute, stealthy physical manifestation of your wealth and your narrative dominance. You must crush the final, agonizing resistance to complete your massive video and storytelling projects, not by aggressively forcing the workflow, but by surrendering completely to your highly calibrated intuition. You must perfect your craft with the cold composure of someone who knows they hold supreme, dictatorial power over human desire and visual magnetism. When you prepare to broadcast your most intricate, researched, or profoundly transformative digital project today, you must do so without a single drop of desperate expectation. You must deliberately, consciously hit the publish button with the icy, silent, unyielding ruthlessness of a conquering warrior who has already mathematically calculated the victory long before the battle ever began. Third, you must boldly demand, entirely expect, and flawlessly orchestrate a massive, completely illogical, yet materially massive scale of global digital reach by completely operating from a state of unquestionable sovereign authority. The massive, heavy, cosmic energy of April 7 knows absolutely nothing of small, incremental, pathetic steps, and it utterly despises the energy of begging for a seat at the table. You must broadcast, create, and speak with the arrogant, blind, absolute, and mathematical belief that your specific frequency is mathematically and cosmically fated to be the absolute ruling standard. You must completely penetrate the minds, hearts, and souls of millions of users worldwide, violently forcing them to pay the absolute highest premium price just for the privilege of experiencing your profound, perfectly articulated, and visually stunning realities. The Jyeshtha moon gives you the exact, undisputed blueprint to bypass their logical defenses, establish an unshakable, permanent foundation of respect, and strike directly into their deepest emotional core with relentless, disciplined, and terrifyingly silent execution. While the entirety of the human collective will inevitably be pulled, dragged, and heavily influenced by this massive, crushing energetic weight, there are three specific, chosen zodiac signs standing directly, completely exposed, and completely mandated to take the absolute highest thrones of power during this colossal cosmic upgrade on the 7th of April 2026. First, we must speak directly, intimately, and with absolute, heavy reverence to the blazing, regal, incredibly creative, and deeply ambitious sovereign powerhouse of Leo. Leo, the cosmic architecture of this day is explicitly, mathematically designed to test your absolute capacity for supreme, silent leadership. You have spent entirely too much energy roaring into the void, trying to convince the disorganized masses of your inherent royalty. The heavy, intense, karmic energy of the Gandmool cycle and the profound, authoritative weight of the Jyeshtha moon are violently demanding that you permanently shed the exhausted mindset of a performer seeking applause and immediately assume the terrifying, unshakable posture of an emperor who requires absolute obedience. Your ultimate capacity for creative leadership, your dynamically generated storytelling, and your supreme visual skills have now been completely weaponized into hard, undeniable assets, but they will only generate massive, global cash flow when you execute them with cold, calculated, and perfectly silent precision. The universe strictly commands you to strip away all cheap arrogance and the desperate need for immediate validation. You must execute your massive digital and narrative projects with the cold, silent precision of a master architect who knows his empire is eternal. The world will violently and desperately throw its resources at your feet, paying handsomely for your exact, unapologetic authenticity and your unparalleled creative genius, only when you completely stop asking for their permission to rule. You must step up, claim your absolute financial and digital territory, and intentionally create massive, unforgettable intellectual shockwaves that deliver eternal, material value across the entire fabric of the internet without ever raising your voice. Second, we violently and aggressively turn this heavy, blinding spotlight entirely toward the infinitely expansive, philosophically driven, and brilliantly visionary power of Sagittarius. Sagittarius, the heavy, psychological waters of this Scorpio moon in Jyeshtha are pulling your massive, expansive energy down from the chaotic clouds and forcing it violently, aggressively into the deep, hard, and entirely uncompromising bedrock of material reality. The cosmic architecture is handing you a massive, heavy lesson in absolute material mastery and the consolidation of your wildly grand visions. You are mathematically designed to catch the chaotic, philosophical frequencies of the universe, but today you are strictly commanded to stop wandering and start building the permanent, heavy infrastructure of your wealth. Your profound ideas, your deeply researched narratives, and your constructive, architectural visions for new media and storytelling are now the absolute heaviest, most valuable currency on the entire internet, but only if you anchor them into a flawless, deeply disciplined, and perfectly executed digital system. April 7 is the exact, karmically fated day you permanently shed any cheap distractions, overblown, ungrounded promises, and intellectual laziness to build a financial and creative empire as solid as concrete. You must effortlessly magnetize millions of followers who are desperately starving for your highly strategic, deeply unshakable, and brilliantly innovative leadership by showing them the physical proof of your execution. Weaponize your newly discovered strategic clarity, silence your need to endlessly debate, and force the entire world to desperately crave and pay any price to acquire your foundational, visionary energy. Third, we violently and aggressively focus this massive, energetic mandate directly onto the deeply psychological, intensely strategic, and profoundly powerful mind of Scorpio. Scorpio, the moon is moving directly, heavily, and exclusively through your own domain, locking into the supreme, authoritative star of Jyeshtha. You are the absolute, undisputed master of this specific cosmic frequency. The cosmic architecture is handing you the ultimate, supreme scepter of psychological and material manipulation. This massive cosmic shift permanently ends your era of hiding in the toxic, paranoid shadows and violently activates an era of unstoppable, laser-focused, and utterly dominant execution in your financial and creative empires. The heavy energy of April 7 continues to pump an absolutely infinite supply of intellectual, driving fuel directly into your physical aura, permanently transforming every quick, intuitive insight, every profound creative manipulation, and every digital interaction into a blinding, giant, inescapable magnet for massive cash flow and viral dominance. Your relational power and your terrifying ability to read the hidden algorithms of human desire must now be channeled into authoritative, undeniable physical manifestation. When you state your terms, you are not negotiating. You are actively, heavily, hypnotizing the entire universe into completely surrendering its resources to you. All pathetic attempts at superficial compromise or sharing your power must be entirely incinerated. Step boldly out into the light with the terrifying, silent pride of a sovereign intellectual leader. Establish the absolute largest, most lucrative financial alliances, and aggressively, unapologetically seize the highest, most untouchable podium of power in the digital world. Hear this. Do not just sit there in the comfortable, suffocating silence of your room and passively listen to these words as if they are merely another fleeting piece of daily motivation meant to make you feel temporarily safe. You must aggressively, completely, and deeply absorb this massive, heavy, profoundly material truth straight into the very cellular structure of your physical body. Let this specific, highly charged, karmically heavy cosmic frequency physically penetrate your skin, violently bypass your outdated, fearful logical defenses, and embed itself permanently, irrevocably into your DNA. You must feel it coursing through your veins, a searing, heavy electrical current of pure, silent manifestation, violently turning your very bone marrow into solid, unbreakable, and entirely permanent gold. Let this radiant, heavy truth burn fiercely, brightly, and violently through the darkest, most carefully hidden corridors of your conscious and subconscious mind, illuminating every shadow of hesitation and incinerating every ghost of your past failures. Allow this terrifying, monumental revelation to permanently, aggressively resonate in your absolute, deepest, most solid and foundational core. You are no longer flesh and blood. You are a living, breathing, heavily armored, wealth-generating sovereign resonator for the universe. The 7th of April 2026 is absolutely, undeniably, and fundamentally not a gentle, polite, or quiet suggestion from a weak, passive, whispering universe. Do not ever mistake this massive, heavily structured, and terrifyingly silent cosmic pressure for a soft, passing breeze or a temporary shift in your emotional state. It is an absolute, incredibly powerful, violently demanding, and completely unavoidable command generated directly from the very foundational, mathematical architecture of the cosmos itself. The infinite universe is not asking for your polite cooperation today. It is loudly, aggressively, and relentlessly demanding your absolute mastery. It is speaking specifically, exclusively, and directly into the deepest epicenter of your consciousness, demanding that you violently and permanently break every single invisible, psychological, poverty-stricken, and algorithmic chain that has ever dared to bind your immense creative, visual, storytelling, and wealth-generating potential. For entirely too long, you have allowed the digital systems, the suppressive shadows of doubt, and the artificial constructs of a low-frequency society to perfectly mute your unique, dictatorial, and supreme frequency. The cosmos is now aggressively demanding that you absolutely shatter the heavily fortified, iron-clad prisons of your own self-doubt and entirely, spectacularly obliterate the artificial barriers keeping your massive global audience and your infinite, massive cash flow away. This is a massive, unyielding cosmic mandate commanding you to rise instantly, aggressively, and with terrifying, silent physical power from the cold, stagnant, and dusty ashes of your quiet, pathetic timidity. You have spent entirely too much of your precious, irreplaceable life playing a small, safe, and entirely forgettable game, deliberately shrinking your massive aura to make your majestic presence palatable for those who operate on the frequency of fear and disorganization. You must consciously, deliberately, and physically reach out, extending your arms not merely into the empty air, but directly into the chaotic, electric, and fiercely vibrating golden energy of the ether. You must push through the invisible resistance and finally, ruthlessly and aggressively grab your ultimate digital, massively financial and creative destiny with your bare, unapologetic and rock-solid hands. You cannot, under any circumstances, sit in the suffocating silence of your room and wait for the universe to gently hand you a crown, nor can you passively hope for an arbitrary, soulless algorithm to randomly bless your existence with viral attention. You must violently rip your massive, wealthy future away from the cold, dead, and entirely unforgiving hands of impoverished circumstance and forge it entirely with your own silent, unstoppable will. The heavy, highly toxic cosmic fog, the accumulation of societal doubts, algorithmic suppression, and your own internal fears that completely clouded your creative vision and paralyzed your execution for months has been permanently incinerated. It is completely crushed by the massive, structural weight of the Gandmool cycle and the profound, silent authority of the Jyeshtha moon, leaving not a single microscopic trace behind. The suffocating cycles of second-guessing your brilliant, architectural mind are entirely dead. What remains undeniably behind in this purifying wake is a mental clarity so sharp, a focus so utterly precise, and a material strength so entirely unbreakable that it is physically blinding. The The agonizing time for quiet preparation and cowardly selling your immortal soul short has violently ended. You will no longer exist in the agonizing purgatory of being almost ready. The exact, absolute, and fundamentally mathematical time for flawless, brutal, unapologetic execution. For loudly commanding the absolute highest premium price without a microscopic stutter of hesitation is right now, at this breathing, electrifying second. You must step up aggressively, boldly, and with absolute supreme dictatorial confidence to the grand, intensely illuminated podium of your life. Do not walk with the trembling steps of an amateur. March directly with the heavy, undeniable rhythm of a sovereign conqueror. Arriving at the epicenter of your stage, firmly and aggressively grip the controls of your digital video empire, your synthetic visual generations, and your storytelling architecture as if gripping an ancient royal scepter. Standing there, take a massive, lung-expanding breath of this highly electrified, intensely structured, wealth-saturated cosmic air. Deliberately feel the raw, profoundly heavy astrological energy flood directly into your respiratory system. Feel it filling your chest cavity, violently expanding your ribs until they physically ache with the crushing pressure of unmanifested power, permanently igniting the deepest biological core of your creative drive. From that burning, completely silent epicenter of unshakable truth, you must command. Project your incredibly authoritative, intimate visual masterpieces and profoundly written narrative truths solidly and fearlessly into the global digital universe. Do not hold back a single vibrating frequency of your authentic ambition. Every generated frame, every deeply researched sequence, and every razor-sharp edit must be entirely weaponized and deployed with terrifying precision. You possess the powerful, godlike ability to instantly transform fleeting late-night thoughts, profound midnight stories, and meticulously engineered video narratives into heavy, tangible physical assets. You are actively turning raw imagination and deep natural history into undeniable numbers that violently multiply in your bank accounts. Your supremely powerful frequency, flawlessly orchestrating synthetic visual secrets and broadcasting untold stories, is the most unimaginably expensive weapon in the entire digital architecture. It possesses a completely hypnotic frequency that effortlessly and silently slices through any complex platform algorithm, completely bypassing all logical defenses and striking directly into the desperate minds of millions globally who are starving for your awe-inspiring creations and sovereign leadership. The time for intellectual contemplation and weakness has permanently expired. Place your hands on your technological tools right now. Grip the cold, heavy metal of your keyboards until your knuckles turn bone white and your pulse completely synchronizes with the pounding rhythm of your impending global empire. Breathe in the karmic fire of April 7, letting it incinerate every lingering ghost of hesitation. Feel the heavy weight of solid gold manifesting in your hands at this exact millisecond. Without a single shred of compromise, pull the trigger. Hit the publish button with absolute force. Release your massive project entirely into the ether. Command, conquer. The universe is entirely yours.